beautiful Lingsha will be in Honkai Star Rail soon, and since we've all had a chance to try her out in the Wardance event, we've all got a flavor of what her kit feels like. Gallagher is her main competition, as they're both break team sustains. Gallagher also happens to be quite a strong break sustain. So that raises the question, is Lingsha actually a Gallagher upgrade? Today, I thought I'd answer that question by comparing their qualities to see who ultimately comes out on top. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Let's begin with toughness damage, because after all, these two are break sustainers, and you're gonna want to use them in break teams, so the amount of toughness damage they do matters quite a bit. The break team sustained damage contribution can actually be quite a neat additional source of DPS for the team. Gallagher, who we're all familiar with, does a really neat amount of it. While his toughness is single target outside of his ultimate, it's still very high quality. This is because if you combine both his 100% advance forward, which he gets after using his ult, and his E6, which increases both his own break effect and break efficiency, plus his enhanced basics extremely high toughness damage, you're left with a fantastic amount of toughness front load onto one target. In simple terms, Gallagher can front load a lot of toughness damage onto one enemy at once. Even his ult, which is an AoE hit, helps contribute to whittling down enemy weaknesses, and once you collect a couple of Eidolons, his breaking actually feels quite strong. I have access to both an E0 and E6 Gallagher, and to be honest, the E0 Gallagher still feels really decent in terms of toughness. Yes, E6 is a big help, and its performance gets significantly better, but I've found that base Gallagher still gets the job done pretty finely when it comes to weakness breaking. Then we move on to Lingsha. I would say that she actually does more overall toughness damage than Gallagher because her attacks are AoE, and considering how good Gallagher's attacks are already, that's nothing to sneeze at. She also has multiple sources of fire toughness damage, her skill, her ult, and her rabbit's follow-up attacks. This all makes Lingsha quite the quick and efficient dealer of toughness damage. The quality of her toughness is quite good, and she whittles down quite a lot of the bar with her skill's AoE, especially considering that she's a healer. I'd also like to add that while Gallagher's ult may have some AoE toughness damage within it, Lingsha's AoE toughness is on demand at the cost of a skill point. And because Lingsha restores some additional energy when she basic attacks, she regens her ult faster when you're unable to take advantage of her large toughness application, and more Lingsha bursts equals more toughness damage, which then equals more break damage taken on enemies. I would say that this makes Lingsha quite an offensive healer because of how much she can contribute to the team's breaks. It'll also make her very nice in pure fiction, as she'll be able to hit all the enemies in an AoE and reduce the fire toughness of trash mobs very easily. I'm gonna give the win in terms of toughness damage to Lingsha. Don't worry, we'll cover skill points, we'll get there, but for raw toughness numbers alone, Lingsha's the winner. Then we need to take a look at their damage boosting capabilities. Gallagher and Lingsha's main form of damage boosting in break teams is increasing the break damage taken by foes. Gallagher can provide up to 13.2% more break damage taken on enemies for 3 turns, assuming you have E4 to 6, and 12% for 2 turns if you have E0 to 3. He does this through his technique when enemies have his ult's debuff applied to them. Now, if you only have an E0 Gallagher, then Lingsha's is better. At E0 with a maxed out trace, she can offer double of that for 2 turns. It becomes more interesting when you consider longer fights, because Gallagher's lasts longer, though Firefly teams, the teams where you most likely will be using these two, tend to clear incredibly fast when built properly, so I think Lingsha's shorter but stronger buff makes her better, though this is debatable in Apocalyptic Shadow, which has longer fights. I'm mostly using MOC as my baseline here. Another point against E0 Gallagher is that Lingsha's buff is simply stronger while lasting the same amount of time. So Lingsha wins when looking at damage boosting, but it's not such a crazy difference to the point where I think Gallagher becomes obsolete. I do also want to mention that with bad timing, you can get Lingsha's break damage buff during your damage downtime, such as when the enemy isn't broken or when Firefly's ult expires, etc. So keep that in mind. Then for sustaining capabilities, Gallagher can hold his own pretty well. His single target heal is meaty enough, and he can do an AoE heal when he uses his ultimate. He also heals your teammates when they damage enemies that have his debuff on them. I honestly rarely find it to not be enough. I mean, I will be honest, using Gallagher against Best Boy as stratagems does make me want to pull my hair out, and I prefer using said Best Boy over him, or Wo if his sustaining isn't doing enough for me. But 9 times out of 10, pretty great sustenance. Also, as E2 provides his skill a much needed cleanse, you really want that against bosses such as Kafka, which have the domination effect, or against the Order, where you're actually likely to use Gallagher since Firefly is best against that boss. The Order applies a ton of DOTs, so it's nice to have Gallagher's E2 in this case. Plus, his enhanced basic reduces enemy attack, which also makes it easier to survive. Yet, Lingsha is even better. She AoE heals every time she uses her skill, making it very on demand. She also heals with her follow-up attack Rabbit as well. Gallagher heals with his skill too, but Lingsha provides her heals within an AoE. Not only that, but when Gallagher heals, he provides no offensive value, whereas Lingsha applies toughness damage as she does so. Her follow-up attack cleanses your whole team as well, in her base kit at E0. This makes Lingsha an extremely reliable teammate to add wherever you need her, as there are so many things that this healer provides on top of her sustaining qualities. Great toughness damage, increased break damage against enemies, and follow-up attacks which can cleanse and apply more toughness. Gallagher can do those first two things too, but Lingsha does them better. Alas, here is where Gallagher starts to take the stage at last. I've had a lot of fun praising Lingsha to the high heavens, especially because I really love this character and everything to do with her, especially her English voice dude. It's so good. But I do still need to point out her flaws in terms of skill points. If we assume you're playing an E0 Firefly team, you want to use your skill during Firefly's ult every time if you can. It's simply more damage than using Firefly's basic, yes? Gallagher is extremely kind to your skill points. You can heal when you need to, otherwise you're using basic attacks most of the time, and ulting when you can. Yes, it is less offensive than what Lingsha offers with her toughness applying skill, but Firefly is such an insane steamroller that it honestly doesn't matter much. Gallagher provides enough, as we have seen from his excellent performance these past few months ever since his release. Lingsha is in a spot where, yes, her offensive capabilities are really nice and she does offer more than Gallagher on paper. But does that really matter if you can't access said abilities in the first place due to skill point issues? Harmony Trailblazer also wants to use their skill when they can, since their own personal damage isn't bad in a Firefly team either, and Ruan Mei wants to use it once every 3 turns she takes. There is a solution to this. Firefly Z1. Once you get that, we can definitively say that Lingsha is the new best installed teammate in Firefly break teams, because then a large source of skill point demand is removed. A Lingsha can access her offensive capabilities with her large toughness damage application far more often, but an E0 Firefly, not so sure. Lingsha will still technically be better, and they let her basic restore some of her energy for a reason. It's because Hoyo knows that nobody is going to be using Lingsha's skill every turn, because that's just not healthy for the team's skill point economy. Rather, you use it either when you need the AoE heal, or when you have a skill point or two to spare and can use it to deal some extra offense, as it gives her follow-up attack more actions while also providing some toughness damage. This, in my opinion, is the biggest point against Lingsha. She has all these amazing qualities going for her that make her seem like a direct upgrade to Gallagher, but her skill point starvation is pretty concerning. With that being said, there is one other way that Lingsha can be better than Gallagher, other than Firefly's E1. Her own Eidolons. Gallagher's are great, of course. To summarize, they give Gallagher more effect res, energy, a cleanse, an extension on his ult debuff duration, and a stronger weakness break with his E6. They turn him from a good unit into a truly excellent one. Though unfortunately, an E6 4-star is never going to match up to the power level of a 5-star with any amount of Eidolon investment. Her E1 is quite frankly insane. It's the true separator between Gallagher and Lingsha. The extra break efficiency would have already been enough to justify using her skill more, but the def reduction? Holy smokes! And that E2's large break effect buff. I thought Firefly was already supposed to be a nuclear bomb, but darn, looks like Sam is gonna nuke a whole 10 planets instead of just a 1 at this stage. I don't think anybody that isn't a whale is realistically going beyond that, unless you're a huge Lingsha simp. Based, by the way, shout yourselves out down below in the comments loud and clear. I want to give you all a high five. Point is, Lingsha with Eidolons obviously beats Gallagher with Eidolons. None of them fix her skill point issues, and I do still think that E1 Firefly is the priority if you want to use Lingsha in her team with the most amount of possible effectiveness. Yet, we cannot just ignore the insaneness of Lingsha's early Eidolons. Careful with what you choose to invest into though. This game's power creep is incredibly fast. I think that although Lingsha's high investment is really worthwhile if you want to vertically invest into Firefly teams, or even if you just want to make Lingsha herself good, based by the way, you should hold onto your Jades and invest them into newer DPSs instead to keep up with the meta. Or even get Firefly's Eidolons up to E2 first, then start looking to Lingsha, because before then, her skill point issues are pretty gnarly. Firefly's E1 first, then Lingsha's, even if Lingsha seems better for the team hypothetically. Plus, then you build up to E2 Firefly, which is, let's just say it's its own can of worms. Then for the verdict that we've all been waiting for. Who is truly better, Lady Lingsha or the gruff fella Gallagher? I'm gonna give the win to Lingsha. She does have skill point issues, but everything else she provides is still really good and can't be ignored. At her absolute worst, she is a mild Gallagher upgrade, and at her absolute best, she is a super impressive offensive healer for break teams that expands upon what Gallagher already introduced to us. Plus, being tied to Firefly, that sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me. Firefly is no chump as we all know. Sam is the GOAT in terms of meta power, even now, and pulling for a 5-star vertical investment potential for one of the current strongest teams in the game doesn't seem like a bad deal overall. With that being said, she will also be good with other break DPSs, I presume. I mostly placed a special emphasis on Firefly teams throughout this video because that is the main use case of both Gallagher and Lingsha. I also think that Lingsha can be safely pulled for. She comes after Fei Xiao and Robin, so everybody who wants those meta picks can get them first. And yes, Fei Xiao and Robin are a lot better than Lingsha value-wise, please get them first if you don't have them. So you can pull for the beautiful healer lady without having to worry about missing out on the Yao Qing General and Robin, since their banners will have passed. Also, I'm gonna be honest, it's very obvious when a character is filler. 2.6 is Rappa, and she isn't some crazy lore-important character like Fei Xiao, Acheron, or Firefly, so I honestly wouldn't worry much about missing out on her. But wait until the dev stream comes out and we get more information on her so you can make a more informed decision. After all, Lingsha is in the second half, no need to rush. All this yap for me to say that Lingsha's a neat upgrade of her flaws. She has some Eidolon-based workarounds for set flaws which make her a lot better, she has a convenient banner placement which allows you to focus solely on her, as 2.6 is looking to be calm before the storm as we're nearing the 3.x era of Honkai Star Rail, and I think Lingsha is absolutely beautiful. Like, holy guacamole, this is a gorgeous character! I'm pretty satisfied with Lingsha. I do wish that her E1 was a part of her base kit, mostly because I feel like if you're pulling for a premium 5-star upgrade for a team, they should be definitively better than the 4-star option for said team. But I think that's just testament to how powerful Gallagher is. I'm absolutely gonna be pulling for her. I'm a husbando enjoyer, but dang, she looks awesome. TLDR, based on these rough impressions, she's not exactly an upgrade so large to the point where she feels like a necessity for your Firefly teams, but she absolutely has the potential to be an upgrade if you want to take the vertical investment route. Also, being an offensive healer is really cool, especially with the way they executed it with Lingsha. Hopefully this video is able to tell you whether Lingsha actually beats Gallagher or not. This has been Juice, signing out, and Lingsha is actually better than Gallagher because she gave us this lovely pink creature. How nice of her.